Welcome to Creating from the Heart. I'm Susie Vance, and I'm here with Katie Bieber, who's got quite an interesting story to tell us. So, Katie, I know you are now working for a company that does websites and social media and all that kind of stuff, but I also know that you've had quite a time singing in opera. Okay, so how did all of that happen?
Well, when I was pretty young, there was always music in the house. My mother got her master's in music. She was a pianist, and she had played all over the world, and she taught piano lessons in our house and had her own studio, and so music was always on. My father is also very musical. He just loves music, and so
what a happy thing.
Really, yes. It was, I count myself very lucky. My mom really, both my parents took us to concerts and introduced us to such a wide array of music. So that was always something I loved, and from a very young age I was very performative, and I would always do plays and musicals in school and everything. And but something I also did for most of my life was write. Even now I have boxes and boxes and boxes of journals I would write, or short stories, or books I would write at a young age. And so these two loves, music and writing, were kind of always in the background. So in high school, when it came time to figure out what I wanted my next step, I decided to audition for some schools to get a music degree. So I ended up going to school and getting my bachelor's in music.
And where was that?
That was in Kansas, the University of Kansas, which is also where I grew up. And that was where I was really introduced to the world of opera. I grew up listening to opera. It was on. My mother's parents were very into opera, and my grandma would even sung in operatic choruses.
Really? That's
for fun.
amazing.
Yeah. But it was kind of my first foray into really the classical realm, I guess. And I just sort of fell head over heels in love with it.
So you said yes.
So I said yes. And I finished my degree. And at the end of it, I was a little burnt out. It was, it's a very intense degree. It was modeled off a conservatory type program. So it was very intensive. And towards the end of it, I kind of needed a little break from it.
Just to see?
Just to see, yeah, I guess. I needed a change of scenery. I needed to just kind of recalibrate, I think. So
where did you go?
I moved to another town in Kansas, and found myself still singing in a church choir to kind of scratch that itch. But eventually I felt myself kind of drawn back to that world.
What pulled you?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what pulled me, but I think I found myself, I felt I was lacking something. I was missing that sort of creative outlet, maybe. So I started looking back into going back for my master's degree. And I ended up going back to school, and I switched voice teachers, and I worked with this unbelievable performer named Joyce Castle. And she took my voice, and it over the course of a semester together, it just kind of blossomed. And she was so inspiring and pushed me to get out more and push myself. And so I started performing more regionally. I went to Europe and performed there. it was wonderful. And so when I finished my master's degree, I was like, well, I can't stay in Kansas. I've got to go. I've got to go to a city. It's either got to be New York or Chicago.
Which did you choose?
I chose Chicago.
Okay.
New York, I just knew that I was happy to fly there for auditions, but I couldn't really see myself living there. So I thought Chicago's good. It's still kind of close to my family, and I can still get to New York very quickly if I need to, or any other metropolis. But it's still friendly. It's got that Midwest vibe. I, on a whim, honestly, I knew I wanted to move to Chicago, so I was like, I'll just audition for the lyric opera Chicago chorus. I'm gonna be in town. I'll just audition. And that audition to this day is the best audition I've ever had. It was, I had reached out beforehand because I was going to sing some kind of complicated music, and the pianist was very receptive to that and thanked me in advance for letting him know. And I'll just never forget that room. I was just so happy to be there. And I don't think I fully understood the caliber of company I was auditioning for, so I wasn't really nervous. It was more just like, this is going to be a fun experience.
Right.
And it truly allowed me to just completely creatively flow. I don't know how to explain it for people who've never experienced it, but it just kind of felt like I was completely connected to the pianist. We were breathing together. It just like everything was kind of buzzing in the room. And I just left that audition and I thought, you know, even if I don't get a job here,
that was really fun.
That was a really fun moment. I got to sing with this unbelievable accompanist and meet these people and sing in this beautiful building. And and so I got like an email or a call or something.
How was it when you got it?
I was kind of shocked. I was like, oh, okay, great. And that year they had only hired two new people.
Really?
And when I found out I got in and I told a few people in the business, they were like, I know people who've auditioned for years for that company and have never gotten in. So I think then it started kind of hitting me like, oh, okay, I guess this is kind of a big deal. So, but yeah, I was there for 8 years. And it was a really nice change of pace from being a solo performer where I was essentially living out of a suitcase, didn't really feel like I had a home base, kind of felt not aimless, but just the change in having a somewhat semi-normal schedule and working with the same people every day and still getting to sing at the highest level. There's only three full-time choruses, professional opera choruses in the US, in Chicago, New York at the Metropolitan Opera, and Los Angeles.
Wow.
What is it? Houston, sorry. I didn't sing there. So anyway, all this to say that I was very lucky to have that experience. And
you said yes to it, though.
I said yes, wholeheartedly. Right. And the first few years were just really magical. I was sharing the stage with, you know, legends in my industry. I got to watch how they worked and their technique and their presence on stage. And, you know, I'll never forget that first feeling of walking on that stage and looking out at all the seats and just feeling, wow, you know, Pavarotti was here, Maria Callas was here, just these absolute legends in this whole industry that I had studied for so long, and that was a really special and unique moment in my life. So yeah, I was there for 8 years, and then the pandemic hit.
And what did that do?
The pandemic shut down, as everyone knows, just
everything.
But hit very hard was the entertainment industry. And so I think I was unemployed for almost 18 months, which was very difficult. And before the pandemic, admittedly, I had kind of been feeling like maybe I was ready to do something different. And so I had started looking into web development. And on a chance meeting, I think it was January 2020, I met Sean and Joe at actually my husband's soft launch of his new company. And I introduced myself and just said, I'm interested in getting into this. Do you have any tips or ideas? And
yeah, come work for us.
Well, Sean was just like, stay in touch, and, we're always looking for new people. And so then 3 months later, the pandemic hits and I'm out of work, and it was just such a crazy time.
It was crazy.
But October of 2020, Sean mentioned to my husband that they were in need of someone to build websites. And I said, well, I've been learning how to do this, so maybe I'll reach out. And so, they hired me. And so when I first started at JCMA, which is where I am now, I was primarily building websites for them and also working on social media. And over the course of a few months, I found that I did love building websites, but what I really loved was writing the copy for the websites.
You're very good at that. Because you acquire the voice of who you're doing it for. You're very good at that.
Thank you so much. That is probably one of my favorite parts of the job, is getting to know all of these different clients and hone in on what they're passionate about, figuring out how they communicate, and bringing that to life. And so now my career is headed toward UX writing, which UX stands for user experience.
What does that mean?
So user experience, think about maybe when you've been on a website and it's like really hard to get through things. You're having trouble maybe finding a button, or you want to buy something, but you're not sure, do I go over here? Or you just find yourself scrolling and scrolling. It's very hard. Getting irritated. That's bad UX. That's bad user experience. So good user experience, you go to a website and you find it, wow, everything I'm looking for is right here.
Right.
It's a very seamless experience.
And I know how to get it if I'm,
or error codes make sense. So I have just found that coming up with that sort of formula and also combining that with a specific tone of voice is really rewarding. And I just love
it's a voice of a different kind.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So this is might sound a little woo-woo, I guess.
That's okay.
But I went to Lyric to clean out so this is how my career ended at Lyric. I got COVID. There was a COVID outbreak at Lyric. After the pandemic, I worked part-time at JCMA and part-time at Lyric, just in a couple shows. And toward the end of the season, I knew it was going to be my last season. I got COVID the last 2 weeks. So I didn't even get to have that final moment on stage. So I had to go back to clean out my desk and in the dressing rooms. And I was just sitting there kind of pondering wow, I'm really physically closing this chapter. And I was just thinking about the future, and my hands started tingling. And it was just sort of, I feel it was me accepting this writer role. You're going to be using your hands.
Oh, I got goosebumps.
And it was bittersweet. I was sort of seeing the end of something that had been a dream for such a long time, but also embracing.
But a gift, taking you to the next step.
Yes. I'm really excited to see where my career goes. there's so much to learn. I'm really excited about accessibility and how that will come into play as, you know, everything continues to evolve with virtual reality and things become more interactive. And yeah, I feel like I've been talking nonstop.
That's great. And I love it.
yeah.
It's a great example of how to stay open and how to stay aware and how to stay present so that when things cross, you're awake and you experience them, and then, you know, you can say yes or no.
Yeah.
And it's not that, you know, we don't make sometimes choices that we have to backtrack and go another direction, but that's being human, I think.
I think the biggest leap I've taken since sort of ending my operatic career was I knew I wasn't going to keep going with opera, and my sister reached out to me and she said, hey, I'm working on this project and they need a writer. And it was for a major culinary school. And my sister was the head designer, and she said to her team, hey, I've got a sister. And I remember kind of being frozen because I felt major imposter syndrome. You know, like, this is a big multi-million-dollar company. They're investing millions into this project. Like, what do I have to offer?
A voice.
You know? And so I talked to my husband, and I wrote a lot about it in my journal. I talked to my therapist about it, and I just decided, like, I think this feeling it's a little fear, but it's also excitement. And so I said yes. And that was such an amazing time career-wise, because I got to work side by side with my sister, who I adore and love and cherish, who I find just so immensely talented at what she does. I'm secretly hoping that happens again someday. I'm putting it out there. But yeah, it was amazing to overcome that sort of imposter syndrome and suddenly realize, oh, I really do have something to bring to the table. And also just seeing that all come together was really rewarding. So now I get to do that at JCMA. It's a little bit on the smaller scale. You know, we help mostly small and medium-sized businesses, but in a way that can almost be more rewarding, because these are people who are really passionate about their products or their services, or, you know, and so it can be really fun to help them craft that. So
Find their voice.
Yes. Yeah.
It always comes back to the voice.
It always comes back to the voice. I've never thought of it like that, but it's so true. Yes. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
If someone would like to get in touch with you or would like to chat,
yeah.
do you have a way they can contact you?
Sure. Yeah. You can email me, Katie at jcma.biz. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me there, or LinkedIn. Also on LinkedIn. So,
Great.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you
This
for
is so fun.
coming. Susie Vance, Creating from the Heart, The Artistry of Living. We'll see you next time. And if you know somebody who I should interview, please let me know. Thank you.